Hello, this is Andrew McIntosh here. When I heard that Barry Appleton had written his memoir, well, obviously, I had to investigate. It was Barry who created Detective Sergeant Alistair Gregg, a character I played in the Bill for 10 years. Barry himself served in the Met for 20 years, so I'm really looking forward to reading about his adventures in the Flying Squad. This one will also be a treat for Bill fans, so grab your copy of 20th Century Cop from Pen and Sword Books.
This is Natalie Rolls, and you are listening to the Bill Podcast. Presented by Oliver Crocker. Brought to you in association with GeorgeFairbrother.com, shop.saturdaymorningpress.co.uk, vanguardcomics.co.uk, gibconsultancy.co.uk, mcr-seo.com, and donspillane.com.
Hi, Nuala. Hello.
Hello, Oliver.
Oh, it's so lovely to meet you. Thank you.
You too.
Welcome to the Bill Podcast, Nuala.
Thank you.
Richard Handford not only spoke very highly of you and your work, but he was like, well, Nuala should be on the podcast.
Oh.
So, high praise from the governor, you know.
Yeah, that's very kind.
There's a lot more to your career than your lengthy stint at Sun Hill. What's your background, and when did the idea of working in media first enter your imagination?
Well, I've always been obsessed with television since I was a child. I just loved television. And as you can imagine, it's very hard to get into media. So in my 20s, I was doing various jobs. I literally got my break when I got a temp job at UK Gold.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, as a viewer liaison officer. There are a lot of interesting people who used to ring up to complain about the programmes, you know, because all TV channels in them days had viewer liaison officers, and our job was to take notes of the complaints. And they used to ring up and said, how dare you edit Doctor Who? So, you know, this is the level we're talking about back in those days. So that's the early 90s. And then I got promoted to, I had a really inspiring marketing director called Andrew. And he said to me one day, these were the days, Oliver, when we were at the Groucho Club, you know, all the glamour. And he said, I really think you should come into publicity. So I became a press officer at UK Gold, which was brilliant because all the artists were dead. So you could do what you liked. It was an interesting time because it was basically trying to persuade people to pay for repeats, which, of course, most people say, well, the BBC is full of repeats. So it's all about packaging, which you see all the time now.
Yeah.
You know, it's a classic. We're doing a season, and it was that, and that's how I got my break.
The viewer liaison. When I studied film and telly at uni, and I got work experience.
Yeah, I did too.
On Coronation Street, and I spent a morning with David Nugent, who was their viewer liaison back in the day, and I'll never forget him getting a phone call, and he said, "Well, no, you can't speak to Gail." Because she's a fictional character, you know, and some of us, it's extraordinary, isn't it? That still television for so many members of the public to this day. It's magic, isn't it? It's real.
For me, the first big soap was Crossroads, and people used to ring up and say, "Can I come and stay?" And I said, it's not real, you know that. But you're right, that's the level. But I'm like you, Oliver. I did film and drama at university, so yeah, I'd forgotten that. So yes. So that's how I got my first break.
And was there anyone in your family who'd been into this? No, it was just very personal to you.
I was quite determined. You know, I mean, it's an industry that's full of nepotism, so it can be very difficult. But then what happened at UK Gold is we were showing old episodes of EastEnders and The Bill, and you get to know the press office. And I got to know Mariette, who was the press officer in them days at The Bill. And she said to me, well, I'm leaving. And I'd been at Gold 3 years. And I said to her, do you think I should apply? And she said, yes. A lot of it is luck, Oliver. You're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. And being the right person and being lucky to have you, you know.
Hope.
So what do you recall about that interview at the Bill?
Well, that's interesting because it's Michael Chapman, who was Richard Handford's predecessor, and he was very old school. And Mariette was very kind because she gave me some clues. And because she said Michael hated publicity. He was very much, because things were very much changing. This was 1995. In olden days, even Coronation Street would do no publicity. The artists would do no interviews, and you just couldn't get away with that anymore. So she gave me the hints, and I think I was very fortunate because he liked me. And when I worked for him, he hated publicity, but he liked me. So he'd let me do things that he'd never have allowed before. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I didn't expect to get it at all.
How familiar were you with the show?
Very. Yeah. I mean, I was like an avid viewer. I mean, like so many people, Burnside was my favourite. I loved Burnside because he was so bad. And, you know, shoving people's heads down the toilets. And when I worked at UK Gold, we were showing the Sweeney. Oh. And so that would have been 20 years. It was 20 years old. And one of my greatest days was doing a photo shoot with John Thaw and Dennis Waterman.
Oh.
But I can say it now because they're no longer here. But John Thaw was very grumpy, which he was notorious for. And he'd had a flooding in his street that had been caused by digging up for cable. So he said to me, "What are you going to do about it?" I said, "Well, John, I'm really sorry." I said, "But I work for UK Gold and I'm not an engineer." And of course, Dennis was very nice, but he wasn't really interested in me because I wasn't a dolly bird. But they were, but we got a fantastic photo shoot out of them. So my liking of the Sweeney, hence then I became my liking of the Bill. It was a dream come true, really, to get a job like that. It really was.
Bring to life for everyone watching and listening to this the role of the publicist back then on a show like the Bill.
Again, because Michael wasn't really into publicity, I worked 3 days a week on my own. You can't imagine that now. And I had a lovely guy called Chris. We're still friends. And he used to work for Carlton, because that's what London ITV used to be, Carlton. And he used to come and work with me 2 days a week. And luckily we got on like a house on fire. And he was very supportive, because you need a lot of support in a job like that. And it's basically, you're promoting the episodes. You're finding a way of promoting the episodes. The easiest way, there are two ways: massive storyline or guest artists. Guest artists were very important. And we got fantastic guest artists at the Bill, as you probably know. Yeah. We got Roger Daltrey, we got Rick Mail, Nigel Planer, really good people. And most of them were very happy to do publicity. Yeah. There was the odd one, like Leslie Grantham, who wouldn't do anything because he hated the press. And Hugh Laurie, who'd had personal reasons, he didn't want to talk to anybody. But he was lovely. He gave me fantastic quotes. He said, well, I remember cornering him in the green room and saying, "Hugh, I hope you don't mind. I know you don't want to do anything, but could you give me a quote?" And he said, "I feel like a proper actor now that I've appeared in the Bill." Yeah, that was perfect.
Magic, yeah.
Absolutely magic.
I mean, that is next level. I think that's really what Richard seemed to embrace and get.
Yes, he did.
You know, the fact that you put these guys in the Bill and people are going to be talking about
it. Exactly. We're very, very fortunate, and that lifted it. And I think for the actors, sometimes, the regulars, it could be quite frustrating because, why aren't I getting? But they didn't. Their characters didn't have the same profile, and we'd always try. We'd want to support them, obviously, but they just sometimes you got such big people. And that episode. Leslie Grantham's girlfriend was played by Denise Van Outen.
Yeah.
And she was lovely. Again, she didn't want to do any publicity, but she was very serious. She took it very seriously, because acting was the next level for her, and she'd gone to stage school, so she could act. And she was very good. And Jamiroquai used to come and collect her in his big car because they were going out together at the time.
Did you meet Rick Mail when he came into the
Oh, let me show you this. This is what he did for Radio Times. This was
yeah. I used to love those in the Radio Times.
So did I. And for us, they do them. I remember him doing that in my office. He was the sort of person, I'd always loved the young ones. It's my generation. I loved Bottom. I just loved Rick Mail, the New Statesman, everything about him. He was the sort of person, you'd be in the canteen. The canteen was obviously huge, full of actors, full of guest artists, full of people covered in blood, looking very strange. In walked Rick Mail, every head turned. Every single head turn. He was so charismatic. And for me, he was such a joy. He was lovely, lovely to work with. He was just pleasant. And when he had that accident, Bill sent him, because we thought so, well, you would anyway, but we thought so highly of him. We sent him flowers just to say, we're thinking of you. But yeah, he's one of my favourite guests. He was adorable. Absolutely lovely.
And he was brilliant in the episodes.
He was.
So good.
Difficult, because it was quite a very tragic, serious character. And yeah, he was absolutely fabulous. The guest artists would help me and would help the actors, would just revitalise and bring more energy. We did have amazing people. I mean, when you think about, these are people that are Hollywood, big TV stars, certainly, and Roger Daltrey, as I say, amazing, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, he's breathtaking in his
really good. And we were on a city farm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I got attacked by all the goats. I was covered. By the time I got home, I was covered in muck. But yeah, he was just a joy. And him and Billy were like schoolboys, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
The best way of putting it, Oliver, is you're looking for angles all the time. And you're looking for openings, thinking, how can I promote this? So, for example, with Graham, let me get one for you. I've got press packs here, Oliver.
Oh, wow.
Let me see. Right, this is a good one. Yeah, that's a really good one. So that's Burn. Can you see that?
I can, yeah.
Yeah. So that's Burnside coming back. So that's a huge story. And then in here, you've got, again, can you see it?
Yeah.
Well, that's Graham Cole had a fantastic story where he was involved in a hit and run. Who represents him? Samantha Bond, whose mother was one of the producers, Pat Sands. You just couldn't lose with an opportunity like that. So, and equally, just seeing like what's happening to the characters. I mean, some of them are more interesting than others. And actors would come into the office and say, I've got a great story. And Chris and I would sit there thinking, no, you haven't. But we just go, really? Okay, we'll look into it. But it wasn't really, it was like an interview scene. And the whole episode was an interview scene. So that wouldn't be as interesting. And because I then became a journalist, you have to understand what sells.
Yes.
And some stories just don't sell, but some you can really do something with. Yeah.
And what's the art of writing a good press release? Like, that's a skill in itself.
Less is more. I was very fortunate because Chris was a trained journalist. So he used to write a lot of the PIs, the programme information. And I used to tell him off because I'd say you can't start a sentence with "and." But then I learned that's journalism. If you read a newspaper, it will start with "and" and "but." But grammatically, that it shouldn't. But that is journalism. And of course, he was right. But yeah, less is more.
Take me back to that iconic building in Merton. Like, where if you're going to your office, walk me through where you go, where it is in relation to the set.
Right. Well, I used to, my first office, I'd literally go into reception and turn left. And I'd go past the script department and then the post area. And then I'd turn right and I'd turn left. I was about 5 minutes. It was like a rabbit warren. I'm sure many people have told you that. So I'm 5 minutes. The toilets were in St. Hugh's.
Of course
they were. So it was very frustrating if you're, as a lady, and you're going around thinking, oh, God, they're filming. I've got to find somewhere else to go. So, and that was you got used to it, but it took me ages to work it out. There were two things that took me ages. How to get through the set and also remember names, because you've got two names. You've got a character and you've got an actor.
Yeah.
So at times you're talking probably 30. So you're talking 60 names. And then I also took over, I did the publicity for Burnside, but I also did publicity for Family Affairs, which was Channel 5 soap. And I had to remember them as well.
Of course.
So they were the hardest things.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because I've got here an article about Family Affairs coming to the Bill.
Oh, yes.
And look, who's this at the bottom?
Oh, my God.
This is in a Carlton magazine.
Oh my God!
Press gang, yeah, look at that.
And that's Emily.
Yeah.
If you know Emily, who works on Emmerdale now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I worked on This Morning for a couple of years, and I'd get press releases from Emily and me, but we all would, because obviously Sharon Marshall was a big part of the show, and so there we are. It's
That's fabulous.
Because I've seen some paperwork from that time as well of just the kind of chaos at Merton, family affairs coming and sharing the same canteen.
Yes.
It must have been a bit of parking seems to have been a contentious subject at Merton.
It was, honestly, Oliver, I mean, again, I look back and you could never get in the car park because obviously the actors and the crew would get there much earlier, so they'd get in there first. So as you know, it's an industrial estate. It's very grim on the outside, and you'd park up on the pavement. And I remember there was an empty car park, which wasn't ours. It was a dilapidated factory. And one day I got out of the car and noticed all this washing hanging up, and a load of travellers had moved in. And, because that's what that's what you're up against. But they didn't stay very long.
Right.
But yeah, it was quite a grim sight. Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like? I've heard so many stories about the flight deck.
Yes, the flight deck.
Yeah. What was the atmosphere like? Was there lots of office banter? Like, what was it like actually being?
It was actually, I mean, as you know, it was the homes of the producers, production managers, and obviously the exec producer. It was actually really jolly. It was really, because I think it's very important, and I'm sure any PR will tell you this, particularly if you're working in film or telly, you should treat the cone man exactly the same as you treat an actor. So when I go on location, I knew everyone, and I would, obviously the director is the boss, but I would speak to them exactly the same. And that was the same on the flight deck. I've got a vivid memory now. You brought something back to me. There was the accounts department, and this was the time of ER, and there was a huge poster of George Clooney. And I'm sure Michael Chapman didn't have a clue who it was. So, but it was nice. Some of the production coordinators became friends, and that's where all the homes are the blue, the green, and the red units. And sometimes there was an additional unit if we had to add shooting episodes and blah 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 whatever. I mean, I look back and there were times where you thought how in God's name did this show get on the telly? Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes it was very tight.
Oh yeah. I've seen paperwork indicating like an episode is still shooting. I mean, less than a month until it is on air.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There are obviously, you've got Michael Chapman at the top. You've got the likes of Pat Sands and Michael Simpson and Tom Cotter. How I know that every week they had like a scripts and storylines meeting.
Yes.
So would you attend that? What was like your kind of what in your involvement in what is to come?
Well, what we would do it was only once a year. I mean, I was very fortunate because I had a very good relationship with the producers and the production managers, and I could just, knock on the door. Well, the doors were all predominantly always open, and you could just go in and say, can I do this? Can I do that? Or do you know what's coming up? So they were very accessible. But we did have these annual at the Cannizzaro. Do you know the Cannizzaro in Wimbledon? It's a very posh hotel on Wimbledon Common. And once a year, there would be a big meeting there with producers, people coming from, in them days it was Pearson, then it became Fremantle. They would come, and mainly the script people and the producers, and you would discuss each character. And then I would say, well, I can't do anything with this character, because that's when, that's what happens with the Bill in my day wasn't really a soap. It then became more soapy. But if you look at EastEnders and Emmerdale, a lot of the reasons the characters go is because the script writers will say, well, I can't find anything else to do with them. I've done everything. So then, and I used to love those meetings. I used to get really excited and quite passionate. And then I did say something once that went down very badly. And I said, well, maybe we should kill off Polly Page, because I felt there wasn't a lot more I could do with her. But of course, I was overruled.
Axing of characters always leads to ginormous press, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes.
It is, that's That's your job,
Yes.
to generate the
Well,
press.
one of the big jobs, and I'd say this particularly in telly, is damage limitation. And I mean, for me, the biggest damage limitation job was when Kevin Lloyd died, Tosh. And that was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life, because he was my friend, and you don't always make friends, but you get closer to some actors than others. And I was very close to him. And everyone tried to help him with his battle with alcoholism. And of course, he was sacked and he died a week later. And my job was to basically, you could have had a headline saying the Bill kills Tosh. So my job was to try and avoid that and make sure the press was sympathetic, which they were.
Yeah.
And I was very tearful. I mean, I put my phone down. It happened on a bank holiday, and it wouldn't stop. This is pre-mobile phones, because not everyone had one. And I'd put my phone down and it would just ring and ring and ring and ring, because of course calls from Australia as well. And I was devastated. So a lot of it is damage limitation, and axing of people is damage limitation.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that. Obviously, it shocked the nation. Heartbreak is the right word for because he was beloved.
Oh, he was. He was lovely, Oliver. But he was like, his life had just fallen. His marriage had fallen apart, and then we had to deal with his ex-wife turning up protesting out the front with a placard. That he wasn't paying maintenance. So there was a lot to deal with just one actor. And of course it ended in tragedy. It was very, very sad. Yeah.
The Bill, I think it was the first ever NTA Awards, won Best Drama in 1996.
Yes.
And that, I feel like that doesn't get talked about enough, because they're still running now. And for the Bill at that time, the Bill, I always feel, and many fans feel the same, it didn't get enough recognition from awards.
Totally agree. Totally.
And how important, because I've seen paperwork as well, where you're a big part of arranging a night like that from the Bill's side of things, and who's going to be there.
Yes.
And, talk me through those first NTA awards.
Well, it was very exciting. I mean, I think we used to get invited, but we never expected to win. As you said, I think they were very early days then. And I think, if I might be wrong, whether Sarah Ferguson presented that award. I can remember sitting there and thinking, please God, can we win? Because that's great press, because it's her presenting it. And we were stunned. We did not expect it at all. But you are right. We were always neglected, and we always used to have to fight. I mean, I've got, for example, this is a cover, obviously, of TV Time, Mark Winger. Covers were really hard for us to get. I mean, he was one of the leading characters. Brilliant story about his problem with booze. And we managed to get a cover. But I can honestly say, probably in my time, probably maybe 5-6 covers, really, really difficult to get.
Well,
what have you got?
Look at that.
Yes. I've got. Now, where's that? I've got the original, and is it that one?
Look at that one. Look at that. That is a stunning cover.
It is, and I mean, oh look, there's my Girl Guide badge. I don't know what that's doing in there, because I've been under the stairs rummaging.
Oh.
TV Times particularly took covers very seriously. But having said that, let me show you this. Now, this you probably won't notice, and I mean that nicely. Now, this cover. And this was a load of, you might have seen this before. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah. Sex, Lies and Police State. There we go, yeah.
Now, I complained about that, because I said that's, out of all the shots, because you're there for almost a day, having a photo session, at least at morning. And I felt that wasn't the best. And I actually complained, and they apologised, but they didn't give us another cover. But until later on, but they did apologise, because it wasn't good enough, because they're good looking, all of them, and they could have looked better.
How long would it take to actually put something like that together? And then
Oliver, it's actually very quick. So they're filming an episode, and that should be ready in 6 weeks, because it's a really tight turnaround to try and get all the press out and everything. I think you're talking, or to do a press plan, is very, very quick. Maybe 2 months, 6 weeks, that kind of thing. It is like a roller coaster. Once you're on it and you can't get off. I mean, that's what you hear actors say, when they interview. Television is really, really quick. It has to be the turnaround. So the press is all very quick, and it's quite reactive a lot of the time.
This is really my year of a Bill. Growing up, I used to watch a Bill with my nan and granddad, and it was just so exciting. The Badlands story where Andy Paul's character got stabbed. Everyone in the playground was talking about it the next day. Everyone.
Yeah.
And it was
huge.
It was huge.
Yeah,
and the viewing figures went like, whew.
Yeah.
But something else that happened, the actors are doing a lot more like chat shows.
Oh, that's exactly what I mean. We had to open it up. I mean, I was trying to remember. I was always looking for opportunities. I remember there was this show in the late 90s called Whatever You Want. Gabby Roslin was presenting it. And it was basically making people's dreams come true. So I thought, I like the sound of this. So I contacted them and said, would you be interested? A police officer going on to this show, or 3 police officers, and then competing. And the winner would get what we call a walk-on part, i.e. they'd have a few lines. And of course, they thought this was fantastic. But then I had to persuade Michael Chapman. So I went into his office and I was never scared of him. There were some people who were a bit scary, but he wasn't one of them. And I'd explain it all to him. And I said, the thing is, we have to have a couple of the actors come on in uniform. And that was always contentious because the uniforms were under lock and key, as you probably know, because people would nick them. And he thought about it and he said, all right. And I think because it was the BBC, so he didn't mind it was the BBC.
All right.
So they did it. So when they had the winner, which was a young policewoman, Lisa and Graham came on to the music and it was brilliant. Oh. And she was lovely and she could act. So we went, as we were always doing on the Elephant and Castle, off we go filming in, these are horrible sort of flats or whatever. And she filmed this scene, something to the effect of, he's not here, go away. And it worked brilliantly. So, yeah, things like that. You had to think outside the box.
What a great idea that is.
And even I was thinking about it, Oliver, when I first started at the Bill, we used to call them Walker prints, but they're fan cards. They were black and white.
Yeah.
And I said, you can't. This is ridiculous. You can't. So I changed all that. Made
cool.
It all. So it's little things like that, Oliver, little things.
Yeah, being proactive and actually not being afraid to have a voice.
Yeah. And it goes without saying, you have to keep the press on your side. I mean, for example, the Daily Mirror never liked the Bill. Whenever you'd send a preview tape, they would always not like it. And so it wasn't the producers, one of the suits, for want of a better description, said, I don't think you should send any of these preview tapes anymore. And I said, no, because one day they'll like it. And that's exactly what happened.
And if you alienate them, it could just make them go on a hate campaign or something,
Exactly. And of course it paid off in a sad way when Kevin died, because that's a classic story of they were as upset as we were. Yeah.
Did Michael Chapman have a leaving party or anything like that?
Yes. Oh, proper posh. We went to Rules. Have you heard of Rules?
No.
It's a mega posh restaurant. Sometimes it's so old. It's probably over 100 years old. If you watch a period drama, they say, "Oh yes, we're all going to Rules." Oh. So yes, it's that. Wow. It was fabulous. Yes, yeah. I'm trying to remember whether Richard did. I don't think he did, but Michael did. Yeah.
What are the differences, from your perspective, perhaps from the entire team's perspective, between Michael's reign on the Bill and Richard? What opened up? What was different?
Everything, I think, opened up. I mean, Michael had a brilliant background. He'd been doing a lot of work for Thames, and as you know, Thames was very prestigious in the sort of 70s and 80s. So he'd done a lot of work there. But that's why it was called the flight deck, sort of military background. And Richard was much more, the last thing he'd worked on, I think, was Peak Practice. So he was, although he's very highly intelligent, as you know, Richard is, he had that populist touch. And he understood what worked storyline-wise. He was great. He was just great, And I remember going to Edinburgh with him. We went to the Edinburgh TV Festival, and he did a talk about the Bill. So that he'd do those kind of things, much more out there, and very supportive. He was very supportive, Richard, which you need because it's very stressful.
if we go back to say 25 years ago,
yeah,
if you had your calendar from a time up on this screen,
yeah,
bring to life your kind of daily, weekly routine. What would that be? What would that look like?
oh my goodness, working out what's being filmed at the moment, working out is episode worth having a photographer on a location. So that's very important. Photography is incredibly important because, as you saw, there's some stunning pictures there. We had really good photographers, but also if you can't get a feature, then at least if you can get a picture, it all helps. It might look minor, but it all helps. So you'd be working that out. You'd then be working on the PI. The biggest calendar, the most important calendar, was when you'd go in and talk to the guy who did all the what do you call it?
Oh, Nigel Wilson.
Nigel, So you go into his massive office, which of course now it's all on computer, and it would be all up on the wall, the shooting schedule. So that was his responsibility, the shooting schedules, each unit. And of course, I'd have to go in there sometimes and beg and say, could you free this person up? Because I really need them to do this. The TV show or whatever can only do it at that time. Or do you think I can go on location and take someone on location, blah, blah, blah. So he was God, really. He was very important. So I wouldn't say I had a calendar as such. The only calendar we'd have is something called Christmas Pull-Up, which is when all the deadlines come forward for the Christmas issues. So you have to have the programme information, photography or whatever available at a certain date and sent to the magazines, and all those dates, as I say, would come forward. I mean, I look back and we were always very busy, and you'd come in and there'd be messages, and then you'd have to be, as I said earlier, proactive. So you think, I'll contact, I don't know if you've heard of a journalist called Steve Clark. Steve Clark was, he now runs Splendid Books, but he was
yes, his name is in Graham's book. Yes.
Exactly. He was one of my trusty freelancers. I had about 2 or 3 trusty freelancers, and they made my life so much easier. You'll find that on all TV shows. They have trusty people, and he didn't do it for me, but he would do press backs for some programs. You'd say to him, well, look, can you interview? Because this actor's only got time to do one interview. So can you do it and then spread it? Right. So he'd get it in What's on TV, he'd get it in TV Times, and it made my life so much easier. It's not a precise science. It's very much what's going on today, who's rung me today, what actors come in, have they got a problem? Because there were a lot of, as you can imagine, personal issues and things.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask about that.
What were you going to ask about? What you found, Oliver?
Well, it was interesting how, but before I go in show an example of that, did the fact that under Richard's vision for the show and the Bill going into the personal lives of the coppers, that presumably had a huge impact on press interest.
Yes, I think it made them more 3D. People like to know what's going on in their home life. So I think that worked. And that's when it was beginning to be slightly more soapy. But that's the way TV was going. So they wanted to know more about the characters. So you're right, that gave us more scope.
And it got pretty sexy under Richard, I think. It was a sexy show for Bill.
But I think, was that the Santini time?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
I mean, that was interesting because, of course, the actors actually got together in real life. I wasn't going to talk about that. They didn't want to talk about it anyway. But I remember doing photo shoots with them because we were more reliant. We had been a bit reliant on guest artists or major storylines. Then to have the home life, it did give us more scope. Yeah.
A relationship that did hit the press, and I'm intrigued as to how this is, I suppose, damage limitation.
Oh dear.
Was Russell and Joy,
Oh my God, yes.
Joy's doing a lot of press at this time, and I about kind of her private life, and I just wonder, because presumably there's some press that actors do that. Do any actors on these shows have their own publicists? Yeah.
I was very anti personal PRs, and I think at one stage I managed to ban them, but I think I was probably a Luddite because I don't think today you could stop it. And I think as some of those interviews were done by personal PRs, I didn't like it. I'm not going to fib. The thing about, you have to try and control it. And if you can't control it, and also I would have preferred it to come through me if they're going to talk about what, their personal lives. But now you'd have to accept it. I think it's just the way of the world.
Samantha Robson is another.
Oh, she was a classic.
Yes. I've got 2 examples here.
Yeah.
I think this is a Nuala Giblin press article where it is a day in the life of playing PC Vicky Hagen.
Yes.
And going out with the real police and talking about it.
That'll be me. But
and then I think this is a Samantha Robson.
Which magazine or is that?
This is Woman's Own.
I've got a feeling I might have done that as well.
Okay.
I think what happened with Samantha, she came in literally at the time Kevin died.
Yes.
And I remember when Kevin died, one of the cuttings was a front cover. I can't remember whether it was a tabloid or a broadsheet. I've got a feeling it was the Times. And there was a picture of Kevin, and this is how the press works, who's died. But then there was a picture of Samantha, who was very glamorous. She's the new look of the bill. So it was a bit,
poor taste.
Yeah, it was poor taste. Thing about Sam, though, she'd do anything. And there was a stage where I needed someone like that. Because, she came in, she had, I took her to the Daily Star. We did quite a raunchy shoot with her in the Daily Star, because I just felt we had to move with the times. And she was new, and I liked Sam very much. And she had this brilliant story about when she was homeless.
Yeah, she's had, her life is a movie script.
Yeah, it is a movie.
Here, top beautiful people, this is called. She's literally on the same bill, as the stars of Friends, Cameron Diaz, Britney Spears, Jennifer Lopez. She's in the same conversation as these major movie stars here.
And this is the time, Oliver, of lads' magazines.
Yeah.
Which now, funny enough, I think there was a programme about lads' magazines a few months ago. And I look at it with horror in a way. But that's what we did with her. She got into the lads' magazines, and she didn't mind at all. And she was very easy to deal with. But I wouldn't do that now. Times have changed.
Interesting, because this one is from the Sunday People.
Yep.
The Thrill.
Exactly.
Now, Suzanne is horrified by this now, understandably, because she's a mum with 2 kids and she looks back. But also, she recalls from this day, Suzanne's 23 here, and she said Lisa was asked to do a similarly provocative pose, and Lisa, with the experience, was able to say, "No, I'm all right, thanks."
Yeah, exactly.
There's a duty of care for you, for these human beings, but also to give the Sunday People what they want.
Well, this is the thing. This is exactly right. It's a very tight. It's a tightrope. Suzanne can look from 20 years, but at 23, she's a keen actress. They do what they need to do because they want to make it. But you're right. There is you think, it's only so far, whatever. And that looks not too bad, I think. That's just my opinion. But it could have been worse, I suppose.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying.
But the other side, she recalls walking into Waterloo Station on the concourse and seeing on a huge billboard, because she had the storyline with Leroy, the Trust storyline.
Yes.
And it blew her mind. She was like, I want a billboard in Waterloo Station.
Yeah.
So, that you must have had... How did the kind of budget work? Because obviously, if you're on a movie, you've got a specific campaign budget for PR and things. So, how did that work on the bill? Was it a rolling one, or
that's ITV? So you have to persuade ITV that you've got a really good storyline. So hence, they would give you that. They would pay for that. And I'll tell you who's the classic one is obviously Billy Murray, who's always one of my favourites. And we actually went to Shepperton Studios, and next door they were filming The Mummy, and they were doing this lineup of hits.
Brilliant commercial.
You see what I mean? And this is film standard. This is really high, and ITV paid for that because they could see this is a really good story. So if you had a good story, they would actually pay for it. And of course, Billy went all around London taking pictures of his poster.
yeah.
Because he was so thrilled. And again, you see, that's the other thing you had to do. You had to have a good relationship. You had to liaise with ITV, and you had to persuade them and say, look, this is really powerful. This is really strong. And it's interesting what you were saying earlier about viewing figures. I mean, I used to get the viewing figures every week and then pass them around. And we're talking about 11, 12, 13 million.
Yeah.
And sometimes, I think for the 999 episode, 999.
Yeah.
I think we got something like 11, and that was disappointing. That was the difference then, completely different.
This is Natalie Rolls, and you have been listening to the Bill Podcast. Brought to you in association with GeorgeFairbrother.com, shop.saturdaymorningpress.co.uk, vanguardcomics.co.uk, gibconsultancy.co.uk, mcr-seo.com, and donspillane.com. The Bill Podcast is produced by Oliver Crocker and co-produced by Ben Adams, Glenn Cooney, Bryony Kelly, Maz Mirabilis, Alex Mockler, and Simon Wolfe. Our executive producers are Isabel Allen, Mark Bennett, Christopher Booth, Rob Cook, James Crissell, Rebecca Deeprose, Alana Dewar, Andrew Dyack, Dan Evans, George Fairbrother, Stuart Gibbon, Vicky Greatbanks, Luke Hegarty, Robert Hoger, Edward Kellett, James Ledane, Thomas Johnston, Dave Meakin, Gary Moncur, Danny Morris, Steph Morris, Laura Pinney-Fay, Isaac Powell, Alistair Wrigley, Michael Seeley, Don Spillane, Angel Stannard, Paul Statter, Patrick Stratford, and Sarah Went. Huge thanks to all you lovely producers who make the Bill Podcast possible. For over 200 hours of bonus content, visit patreon.com/The Bill Podcast.